Is the minimum wage going up in Delaware? We'll talk to a man trying to fight it. He's also running for governor. Colin Bonini is with us. This is the Delaware Way. Welcome to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Menti. The legislative session in Dover is in full swing, and on the table, an increase in the minimum wage and a gas tax. Here to talk about those two things and more is Senator Colin Bonini from the 16th District, which is in southern Kent County. He is a Republican, and he is, or hopes to be, the Republican contender for governor. Let's talk about the minimum wage. You've been one of the loudest voices against the minimum wage. It's already passed the Senate, so you weren't successful there. What is your role now in trying to stop it?
So the role is to try to stop it in the House, and if it gets through the House, obviously try to convince the governor to veto it. Larry, I think the raise in the minimum wage is a job killer. I mean, this is a significant raise we're talking about. I think an over 25% raise over the last few years. And we had extended testimony in the Senate that says if we pass this bill and raise the rate to $10.25 an hour, we're going to lose jobs. And the bottom line is we need to be creating jobs, promoting job growth, not pursuing policies that hurt jobs.
Give me proof of this? I mean, I keep hearing this argument all the time.
Well, we do, absolutely we do. And we had testimony. I think it'd be really interesting. I mean, we get that question all the time. Folks testifying on the floor of the Senate, which is the equivalent of under oath. We had a gentleman who runs a pickle factory. He bottles pickles. He came in and he said, by the way, I came here and testified 2 years ago and said, if you raise the minimum wage, I'm going to have to lay people off. And he said, last year I laid off 45 people. And we had two gentlemen farmers who came and said, hey, by the way, I have this many people. Last time you raised the minimum wage, I had to cut it by X number of jobs. If you pass this, we're gonna lay off 200 people. And I did a sort of running tally of just the witnesses and the Senate testimony, and there were 400 jobs we were going to lose. Boom. Just from that testimony.
It would have to have a greater effect than that. I mean, the minimum wage has been raised in state after state after state after state. Right. I haven't seen yet the evidence, and I'm sure there's been a study. That's what I'm getting at, I guess.
First of all, I would disagree with you. There is evidence, and I apologize, Larry, I didn't bring it with you. But
that's what I'm getting at, so you can answer.
And there's Delaware-specific evidence. If you go to the Caesar Institute, they can give you the studies specifically what the impact is. We have specific evidence from the employers themselves, which is the most telling. And of course, the other issue is, Larry, is how many jobs are we not creating? How many folks are not expanding? How many folks are not hiring? How many folks are choosing not to bring their business to Delaware?
I have seen an increase in costs.
Yeah.
There's definitely that. But this massive job loss seems like it hasn't happened.
Well, we had, look, just on the testimony, on the Solar Senate, we had 400. We're going to lose 400 jobs just on the 4 or 5 business people who came. And Larry, those people they brought their books. You absolutely believe them. They're going to lay those people off. But regardless of the specific job numbers, Delaware is already in the economic dumpster fire. Right? We're the only state in the country that has had a drop in income and wages in 5 of the last 6 years. The only state in the country. We have an anemic at best economy. All these quote-unquote job numbers that we're touting are all part-time jobs with lower benefits. I mean, I would argue Delaware's economy is one of I would argue one of the worst in the country. And I'll be honest with you, Larry, I think this was more of a campaign year push than a real.
By whom?
By the Democrats who are either running for either re-election or for other offices.
Is the chief competition other states, or is the chief competition other countries when we raise the minimum wage?
It's all three. There's a third. The third key competition is technology, right? And if you push, like the gentleman who runs a pickle factory in Sussex County, right? They can pickles. It's very cool, actually. I've been. He laid off 45 people and bought a machine to do it. Because
that wasn't going to happen anyway?
Well, it certainly wasn't going to happen to those this year to those 45 people, right? And that's a legitimate counter-argument. Hey, that's going to happen anyway. But and do I think those things are going to happen anyway? Yeah, absolutely. Are we going to see more technology at go to McDonald's, et cetera? But the reality is the government should be mandating those things, and that individual business owners and their employees and their, the family of employment should be making the decisions of when it's time to move up in technology, when it's time to do those things.
The most vociferous voice on this, aside from yourself, the most vociferous voice has been the restaurant industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
50,000 workers, and they said that if you do this, we absolutely have to lay off and maybe have to close up shop.
Absolutely, and I think in the restaurant workers' argument, I think it's the restaurant owners' argument, I think it's one of the best arguments is to say, look, the minimum wage is a training wage, right? And despite what the other side says, the overwhelming plurality of folks who use it are first-time workers, teenagers, et cetera, right? And if you can't hire folks at a training wage and you have to hire them at a much higher wage. A, as you mentioned, you're going to pass those costs directly onto the customer, and B, you're simply not going to hire them. And I'll tell you, as a guy who started working when he was 13 washing pots at a catering business in a foods and a restaurant industry, you know, I wasn't worth $10.25 an hour, you know, at 13. And my guess is a lot of these introductory workers aren't. But they can be worth that after a couple of years. And I think the idea of that this is a training wage is very, very important, and I think a reality, especially in the restaurant industry. And the other case is, so you start at the minimum wage, you learn the basics of work, and then you move your way up. I want, and all of us want, people to make the most that they are capable of making. That's the American dream.
But it's where they start and where they finish.
Absolutely.
That's the difference. Now, in the House, it's going to pass, right?
I assume so. We hope. We don't know. I mean, there's some pro-business Democrats in the House, and again, I'm not even sure it's going to get to the House floor because, again, my take is, part of me thinks that this was simply a political statement.
But if you just look at the politics of it, if
yeah.
you say it's politics, if you look at the politics of it and the Dems and the Republicans, it's going to pass the House.
Yeah, they have
so
supermajority.
Likely it's going to pass the House.
Right, if it comes to the floor.
But you said, this is when we were off camera, you said you're not sure what the governor's going to do.
I'm not sure what the governor's going to do. The governor was asked, and he said that he would be happy to support the appropriate minimum wage. And of course, the follow-up question is, what's the appropriate? Well, there's really no answer to that, right? So part of our, you know, those of us who are concerned and we think this could hurt the economy are lobbying not only our colleagues in the House, but also, you know, appealing to the governor to say, if it does get to your desk, you know, please veto it. And again, regardless of where you are on the minimum wage, you know, sort of philosophically, the fact that we're laying it on top of an increase very recently, I think last 2 years we've raised it $2 or something like that, or 3 years, really that's a sort of a double whammy for businesses. So regardless of where you are philosophically, the timing issue, I think, is a legitimate reason not to do it right now.
Okay, so if your bet right now is you have no bet on the governor. You have no. You really
I
have no idea.
apologize, Larry. I have no idea.
That's interesting
I really
to me
idea.
that you don't.
And by the way, I do support a minimum wage. By the way, but I just think that, you know, $10.25, and the original was $15 an hour. I just think that's
by June 2019, right? That's when it would be.
Yeah, but again, we have to be very careful. Capital and businesses make rational decisions, and we want Delaware to be a place that people want to bring their businesses here, want to grow their businesses here. We want people to get good jobs, keep good jobs, and if we continue to pursue policies at the state level that discourage that, we're going to get exactly what we have, which is poor performance.
Okay, we didn't even talk about the gas tax, so I want to do that quickly.
Okay,
when we come back, I also want to talk about your campaign for governor, and beyond that, I'd like to get your take on the national campaign as well, especially on the Republican side.
Yeah, if you know anybody who knows anything about the, you know, who can predict that,
well, I'd love to I would love to hear if you're supporting anybody yet. Senator Colin Bonini, Republican from the 16th District, which is Southern Kent County, when we come back.